All right, this is a big one.
Wait, are we going to say hello? We do our intro?
Sure.
This is Queer Cinema Catchup. Hi, I'm Allison.
I'm Joe.
In this podcast, we catch up with one another.
And movies, TV, and miscellaneous topics through a queer lens.
And this week's miscellaneous topic is actually a stage play.
Well, you keep saying stage play, which confused me.
Oh.
Because a stage play, I interpret to mean a straight play.
Oh.
But A Strange Loop
It's a musical.
is a musical.
You're probably right. I do have an MFA in ready for the screen and stage.
Because you kept calling it a stage play, and then it didn't really cross my mind. And then that night, as we were waiting to go in, I was like, damn, I kind of wish this was a musical.
And you asked me that right before it started. You're like, is this going to be a musical? I was like, yeah, I'm pretty sure.
I was like,
and then it started the most musical way possible. And I was like, whew, you made me a little worried there for a second. Even though I do love stage plays. Same thing in the line in theater camp, which maybe we should rewatch for the pod. But do you remember the line where in the beginning, the son who has to take over the camp and is not really in on Broadway culture is like, what's a straight play? It's like a drama.
So a musical would be a gay play?
And he's and the guy's like, yeah.
Theater camp is good. A Strange Loop, very good.
Excellent. When I was pursuing my MFA, I enjoyed theater, but mostly my knowledge of theater was probably going to be things like The Crucible and Wicked and Phantom of the Opera, just kind of like those canon type theatrical pieces. And so I would say my MFA kind of expanded my horizons in terms of what's possible in the theater, and I do really love it. I learned about A Strange Loop either during my time at Northwestern or shortly thereafter. Mm-hmm. And I really wanted to see it. And then I heard it won the Tony for Best Musical. And I personally wanted to see it because I was vaguely aware. The parts that I knew, because you knew nothing going into it.
No.
I knew that it was about a man grappling with himself and that he had multiple manifestations of that self. And I love that kind of thing.
I had only seen an Instagram ad for it. And all I saw was a man dressed what I assumed was a bellhop.
Me too. I thought
flying in on the luggage carrier at a hotel. And I was like, what a whimsical musical.
I also thought it was set in a hotel.
So we're about to dive in. And I think how this episode's going to work is we're going to kind of do a combination of how we usually do our podcast, where we just kind of talk in a free thought type of way with some plot structure in there.
Kind of like A Strange Loop.
Oh, yeah. Whether we tell you each song, because the story's told mostly through song. It's a musical.
Yeah, I would say almost 95% of it
it's
song.
all singing. But really quickly, I just want to read the quick Wikipedia synopsis at the top. A Strange Loop is a musical with book, music, and lyrics by Michael R. Jackson and winner of the 2020 Pulitzer Prize for Drama. First produced off-Broadway in 2019, then staged in Washington, D.C. in 2021, A Strange Loop premiered on Broadway at the Lyceum Theater in April 2022. The show won Best Musical and Best Book of a Musical at the 75th Tony Awards. What the hell is a book? What does that mean?
The book would be the script and the music,
Why is it called the book?
I don't know. It's just what they call it.
Anyway, the show follows Usher, a black queer man writing a musical about a black queer man writing a musical. The title refers to a cognitive science term coined by Douglas Hofstadter, as well as a song by Liz Phair. All right, so we've set it up for you.
So quickly. So the character's name is Usher,
yeah,
right?
I was confused by that.
So I was also confused by that.
Because he's also...
that added to my confusion. I thought it was going to be a hotel. Or a movie theater. Oh, wait, never mind.
He is. He's an usher at a movie... Named
Usher.
At a Broadway play.
Which maybe speaks to... Okay, that's giving me...
I think it's kind of almost he's nameless in a way.
Yeah, exactly. You could look at Usher as sort of a literary reference to the fact that this is a character who's grappling with what his identity is internally and how he's perceived externally and how that influences the internal. Thus, he's an usher in a theater, but he's also named Usher. Or you could look at it as a choice the writer made because his own name is also a pop icon, Michael Jackson, although his name is Michael R. Jackson. And I was reading an interview he gave in the New York Times where the interviewer pointed it out. And this was his quote. Jackson has embraced the absurdity of the coincidence. It's a strange loop, Jackson told me on the phone when I mentioned the coincidence. See what I did there? He stopped, started again, wanting to clarify. When I say that, I mean that my whole identity as a person just in the world has always been sort of tied to that man because of our names. It's been both an annoyance and a help. Jackson has embraced the absurdity of the coincidence. His website name and Instagram handle is The Living Michael Jackson, for example. Certainly, whenever my name is mentioned, the ghost of him appears somewhere. But we're two very different artists working in two very different traditions. And yet, there's something about his legacy that is invoked whenever my name comes up. There's a certain excitement that comes up, and maybe I've been able to utilize that. I think that's true. And I think that maybe it's given me a certain kind of confidence, perhaps, as somebody in the entertainment world, because Michael Jackson stands for pop excellence and razzmatazz and razzle dazzle. And that's certainly something I aspire to in my work.
I honestly didn't even connect the middle initial in the name. Made me forget that
I know.
Michael Jackson is the same name.
Yeah, I didn't really like digest his name, to be honest. But I think like if I had been thinking about it, I would have obviously noticed. But I thought that was so cool. And so he's so smart. And even just the way he answered that question was like exciting to me. Let's dive into his work. Yeah. Which, one more thing. How long do you think it took to write this, Slay?
15 years.
It took 20 years when he was around the age of the character.
Because I knew the character is like 25, about to turn 26, right?
Yeah.
And then he in real life is like nearly 50, right?
And he's like 42.
Oh, he's young.
Yeah.
He's a youngin'.
Apparently he was revising it and rewriting it up until...
yesterday when we saw it.
Up until it was like put on stage. Or maybe won the Pulitzer, I don't know. But remind me to tell you about Tyler Perry. Tyler Perry?
Yeah.
Is that his name?
Tyler Perry.
Oh my gosh, I just said it. It sounded wrong.
Yeah. It's kind of like when you think of something too intently. Does that ever happen to you when you like think of a word? And you're like, is this real?
It's like Tyler. Think about it.
Is this real? Do you also ever have like, I'm afraid I'll go into like existential spiral. But
I know you're about to frighten me. I can tell.
Do you ever just like, everything just like doesn't seem real?
There's a psychological term for that.
Disassociating.
It's a type of disassociation. It's depersonalization and derealization.
Oh my.
And depersonalization is when you're like observing yourself from the outside. And then derealization is what you just said, I think, where you don't think reality is real.
Because I'm bringing up, it's kind of happening right now. Almost like I am like sinking into my own head. Like there's like a tunnel and then nothing really seems real.
That is exactly it. I honestly don't really experience that very few times. I don't have that particular thing happen. I think it's normal.
Everything's normal, you guys. Everything's normal. Everything's fine.
If I think about it too hard, you're going to... What I was starting to experience, I was like, oh my gosh. And then two, it's gonna be
I'm like teetering on the edge. I could fall into the tunnel right now, but I'm choosing not to.
You know what's a good way to ground yourself? Say 3 things like that you see. Say 3 things that you can hear and 3 things that you can feel. And it like ground you in the present and in reality. So TV, ottoman, couch, fabric, my shirt.
Are you saying these on my behalf? Because I'm not currently touching your shirt right now.
I am grounding myself. Grounding is something you can only do for yourself. Or maybe you can help someone ground them. I don't know how to do that.
You don't need the grounding, but then you're like, just in case, I'm going to ground myself really quick.
Just in case you telling me about derealization sends me into the abyss. I'll be fine. I don't know about you.
I don't know. You guys, we've never talked about our couch before.
Which is a real shame.
Well, if you watch Double Catchup Mondays.
Oh, it's a new segment. We just invented it tonight.
Our giant couch. So when I'm on the couch, I feel a lot of safety and security. So I'm in a good place right now.
Thank God.
Should we just go in and talk about like an overall first impression?
Yeah. What things stood out and what was your takeaway?
Okay. So can we talk about getting to the show?
Oh, of course.
I drove there. It took me an hour because traffic's awful. It was at the Allison Theater, which is a part of like the Music City Center downtown.
It reminded me of the Kennedy Center in the DC.
It was really beautiful there. I go to park. There's a huge line to get in parking. And come to find out, we found out later that there was an opera across the way. So parking was horrendous getting in. And I pull into the parking lot to go pay it. It says cash only.
Oh my gosh, you didn't tell me that.
And I like never have cash on me. And it's $10 cash. Somehow I magically open my wallet and there's a crisp $10 bill there. And it felt like fate.
Oh my gosh.
I don't know what would have happened if I didn't have that $10 bill. So that was my first good side. And then
I thought this was going to be a negative story.
No, it was positive. The second part is it was just overall a wonderful experience.
It was so beautiful. And I had an experience where we talked about meeting there and getting dinner. We like kind of said the time, but we didn't really like say for sure. So it was like kind of time to go. And I was like, wait, I didn't really
discuss
like,
when we get there.
I'm like, I don't leave now. I'm not going to be there at the vague time we said. So I should probably leave now. And then I texted you and you're probably driving. And so like you didn't answer for a while. And I was like, there's a chance I'm just going to have to like eat dinner alone and then meet you at the show.
Which would have been fine. It was kind of
would have been awesome. Yeah.
And then the theater... I can't believe you haven't told this part of it. You were telling me about your Hadestown experience.
Oh my gosh. Okay. The last time I was in New York City, this is a horribly sad fact.
Oh.
Was in 2019.
I've been in New York more recently than you.
I used to go multiple times a year. Like I got to get out there. I got to get to the Big Apple.
I'll go.
We should see Wicked because you really want to see Wicked.
I do.
Okay. So it was for my sister's birthday. We had like points to stay in a Marriott and there are multiple Marriotts in New York, but there's this one hotel. It was right on the river. And for some reason, we got the most amazing room. Like this view. Like we could literally see the ferries. Oh my God, it was extraordinary.
Must have been a Marriott Bond boy.
Probably was. And so then we go to see Hadestown and I'm so excited. And they had like a little bar cart, like right in the back of the theater. And I was like, oh, should we get a drink while we're watching the show? And Caroline's like, yeah. I'm like, oh, I'll get it for your birthday. So I guess they like don't want people to continually come up to the bar, obviously, during the show. So I ordered 2 glasses of wine, and they came in like a specialty cup that you got to keep that was like branded Hadestown. I'm not joking. They poured half a bottle of wine into each of these specialty cups. And I like came back to the seat. I was like, they gave us this. And I was like, oh my gosh. So I'm like watching the show. We're drinking this wine, and it is a very moving show, but I'm not really someone that like cries a lot, period, or like cries. I guess I'll get like emotional if there's good music.
I choked up one time during A Strange Loop.
Really?
Yeah.
I guess I did too.
I was like really affected by something. I'm curious if it's the same moment, but we'll when we get there.
We'll get to that. Yeah, there's this part in Hadestown. Can I spoil it?
Yeah. Well, actually, no, because I don't want to know.
Okay. Well, it was really surprising and so moving to me, and I like truly began crying. My sister was like, why are you crying? I was like, well, I've had almost half a bottle of wine, and there's really great music playing. And yeah, that was my last experience in New York City.
But so Allison's telling me this story.
Oh yeah. And I was like, it was crazy. I would never want to do that again. And then we go into the theater, and we're going to get a drink during the show. And we get up there, and they're like, do you want a single? I was like, a glass of wine, like a single or a double? I was like, a double. And then she proceeds. It wasn't a specialty cup, but it was like certainly a lot of wine. And this time I decided not to drink the entire thing.
Then also why either of us will drink our wine is we were sitting at the very, very top of this theater. And the way when you seat up there, it's like very curved. You're almost in like, if I were to describe it, it's almost like a tilted tuna can is how I'd describe
You're very good at
the movie theater shape. And it's like we're at the very top. So like your view, like looking down at the stage, it's very like small down there. You can still see everything. But it was at a very like strange and steep angle.
Actually it kind of freaked me out in the beginning.
And so it almost feels like you could almost just like fall forward off into the distance.
And I guess like you're worried about dropping the wine on someone.
We sat down, and sometimes I'm sensitive, and other times I'm very insensitive. And Allison turns to me, she's like, do you think we'd survive if there was an earthquake? And I'd be like, absolutely not. Are you kidding me? We'd die. And I was like, really? I was like, yes, we're in a death trap. And Allison's just like,
oh no.
And then in my head I was like, she was looking for reassurance.
Don't worry, I was okay. I can handle it.
Real viewpoint.
I kind of think we're always going to die from the earthquake. So really just kind of confirmed my deep, dark fears.
Anyway, the show starts, and I guess podcast starts.
The podcast begins.
Let's get to song number 1.
But did you want to give the impressions or anything like
that?
Yeah.
My overall thought is I found the story to be really impactful. There was one moment where I was like truly transported. You know, when just like a story like sweeps you up so much, you just like forget you're watching a musical. Like there was like one moment where that happened. But yeah, I was very moved by it.
Are you going to tell me later?
It was the song where the woman who has the Lion King playbill, she like was giving advice, and I'm getting like chills just thinking about it. I forgot that somebody wrote this. Like it felt like it truly.
It felt like someone was talking to.
It felt like somebody just like walked out onto the stage and started giving advice. It was like, wow, Michael R. Jackson was able to remove himself and write this completely different character and give advice to himself. And it was just like so powerful, so impactful. I know that Usher's only 26 years old and I'm 33, but I like immediately like felt so engaged, and I felt like they were speaking to me directly. It was like so powerful. It sounds like the same experience with you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we can tie into, eventually we got to listen to a talk back after the show.
It was a surprise. I was like, didn't I say, that's why I didn't drink the wine? Remember, I was like, I don't want this lady to pay attention to the talk back.
And I guess we should also speak to the fact that this is a Black writer, a Black queer writer. We are not Black. We do not have that experience. And so everyone involved in the play is also a Black queer person.
Yeah, which is awesome.
And when they were doing their talk back, they were speaking about how a lot of people would come up to them when they would play in New York and be like, oh my gosh, this play, it's me. I see myself in it. And it would be like Jewish women. It would be
I actually wrote this stuff down if you want me to.
Sure.
People probably thought I was being really rude because we like moved down to the
front. It looks like you're furiously
texting. I like dictated it because I was like, I need to remember all this and I need to talk about it on the podcast. Okay, so John Andrew Morrison was talking about the experience of putting this on first off Broadway for largely white audiences, and how people like at the very first showing, like no one was laughing or clapping the entire show, and our theater was like full of laughter. Would you not agree? And full of like reactions. But he was saying kind of like at the very end, everyone burst into applause. He could hear like an old white man saying like, thank you, and how like it landed differently there because it was people who maybe didn't have that connection to the story. And I feel like we, even though we're not Black, we do have a connection to the story and that we're queer. And so those parts are going to resonate with us a lot more deeply than it would for someone who's not queer. There are these pieces of it that speak to so many people, and you can think like it's extraordinary the way that works.
Wait, I want to quickly...
People finish the show. That was the quote, in their minds and their hearts.
That's interesting though. With the man who was saying thank you, when John Andrew brought that up, I thought it was interesting because I feel like white people, we often think that like people are there to like educate us.
Yeah.
Wasn't the reason he brought up that whole story is like, we're not here to educate you. Like, we're Black queer people putting on this musical, and it's not necessarily a story for you. And if you're here to witness it, great, but it's not necessarily for you.
I mean, I think that's true, but I didn't hear any actual negativity in his describing of this story. Like, I didn't think so. Also, he told another story about someone that came, this is hilarious. This like very tall, white, beautiful male model type person was behind the stage door waiting for them, crumpled up over the banister, like sobbing. And they came out and he was like, that's my story. That's my story. And they were like, okay, it's not, but we're glad you were moved. But yeah, we should definitely go through all these quotes because I wrote down so many excellent ones. Woo!
So a strange loop, maybe before we go into the songs. Well, I guess the first song kind of explains the premise.
You did.
Well, I didn't explain though the thought.
Oh, right.
The characters.
That's why I told John to look at the playbill because I was like, I saw thought 1, thought 2, thought 3, and I was like, oh no, that's going to give it away.
I'll tell you the cast first, and then I'll break it down what it all means. Malachi McCaskill plays Usher. Tara Connor Jones plays Thought 1. J. Cameron Barnett plays Thought 2. Aviance Holes, Thought 3. John Andrew Morrison, Thought 4. Jordan Barber, Thought 5. And Carlos Shane Clark, Thought 6.
Wait. You just reminded me, the writer and the theater director came out on stage and they were like asking people to applaud if they were first timers. And then they were asking people who've seen the show before to like applaud. And they were calling them the seventh thought. Oh. And what is the seventh thought? Is it the woman that comes out and says, I like Wicked?
No. I think they just mean it like the Seahawks 12th man.
What you just said makes no sense to me.
There's 11 players in a football game and the audience is the 12th man. So the audience is the seventh thought.
Yeah, I'm behind that. Like I'm into that.
Community.
And also, like, a play exists in conversation with the audience and their thoughts.
These 6 thoughts are meant to represent the different characteristics of Usher, the main character.
And I think different, like, anxieties, different identifiers. Like, there was, like, a financial baggage character.
The financial F-slur.
Yeah. I really love this one. His sexual ambivalence. That made me laugh. And then there was, like, the inner white girl.
Oh, inner white girl had its own thought?
I think, like, it is part of... I don't know.
I don't think so. I think it was always... He would say he has an inner white girl.
But okay, the point is like they each represent a different part of his identity, kind of like a Greek chorus, and also like a different part of the questions he has in his mind about who he's supposed to be and who he wants to be. And the play kind of starts with him being like, I'm going to beat back these thoughts and make my play. And yet he's not able to do that every day. These thoughts send him on a strange loop. I wonder if the Wikipedia
I'm going to go through the Wikipedia.
Yeah. Okay, so self-loathing, financial F-slur. I'm going to call it the financial burden thought. Corporate N-word, which I took to mean the expectations of your community defined in a very specific way. And then my favorite thought, sexual ambivalence. You can rest assured that I've sealed the gates of your body and mind so that nothing can get inside your shitty butthole until you give the word. My eyes just got really wide and scared. I was like, am I going to say that?
This actor who portrayed...
I loved her.
And I loved her voice just like cut through the deeper voices.
And one interesting thing we learned in the talk back was that thought was originally played by a trans woman on Broadway.
Yeah.
And then they asked during the talk back, like in not having a trans person play that role is like something lost. And then Michael R. Jackson gave a really interesting answer, which I, of course, dictated into my phone so I can quickly read it. Another word for queer is strange, which means expansive. Every production has to make a decision about the queerness within it and what that means and how expansive it is or isn't. This LA production is the very first production that has a cis woman in it. That was made possible by a trans woman who brought a woman's presence into the play that before had, I think, only been conceived as maybe queer men. I'm not quite sure. But having a queer cis woman in the production brings its own queerness to the show. That's something new. What I love about theater is like every day, every cast brings something new to it. And it's like really much a living art form. And so I kind of love that.
Just like the new characters of Elphaba and Glinda. Wicked movie that I'm very excited for.
Yes. But such a creative idea. And honestly, I think there's also like a concept I've learned from psychology, like part work or parts work, which is like the idea that all of us kind of are made up of different parts that want different things, that have different strategies. And if you experience difficulty in your life or you like exist in a culture that makes things more difficult for you, those parts can be very fractured and have a difficult time like working together, and they kind of pull you in different directions. And I feel like it was really inventive, but I think it's speaking to something that's really true about the human experience is what I'm trying to say.
Maybe I'll just like play a bit for us.
Usher, Usher, Usher.
So does the intermission song just set up the fact that it's going to be a musical within a musical?
I think so. And I think it also like highlights a lot of the themes. Like, I think this is one of my favorite songs. It has so many great lines that I want to highlight. So he's trying to write this play. He can't do it for so many different reasons. And it kind of goes through the different reasons. But there's one part where it's like, all he wants is to subvert expectations, black and white, from the left and the right for the good of the culture. So I really love that line because he is seen as maybe too black by the white world and then trying to be too white by his black community. So there's like, that's pulling on him. And also just like, love that line of like subverting expectations. And you're a big black ball of confusion that keeps hitting a plateau. You can't just flout every convention, then command complete attention. Either way, you keep careening, so it's hard to find a meaning. So it just is like somebody who's like being pulled in all these different directions internally, and then also expectations are put upon him. And so how is he like gonna write a story that makes sense, you know? And it's like he's stuck.
Do you think the how many minutes is an ode to 525,600
I didn't think about that.
minutes?
Maybe it's a joke,
ode to
like a little inside
Rent
joke.
the musical.
He said during the talk back, I'm not one of those theater people that hates theater. I was like, who are they? But I was really intrigued. He's like, I actually love musical theater. So actually, I could believe that it's like a Rent reference. I didn't think about that. But yeah, honestly, this song, I was like sold.
He's dressed up as a Usher, which also looks like a bellhop. As I've said on the podcast before, I was an Usher at one point in time.
Oh my gosh, so you were locked in.
The connections already being drawn. But he had a little triangle that he would ding, ding.
Yes, I loved it. I loved it.
Pretty much how the stage is set up for most of the musical is there's like 6 rectangular shapes that the thoughts all stand in, kind of like the silhouettes in Chicago.
I was going to say, is that a Chicago reference? I bet these all were
probably
intentional references.
And the way that the thoughts kind of carry their bodies too are just very like provocative, very
and distinct
way. It sets up that Usher's an usher at a Broadway
Disney Broadway
show. He'd say Disney, but he would not say the Lion King.
But there were hints that it was the Lion King throughout.
The one woman had a Lion King bag.
And all the
and
family members.
She lifts it up and says, "This bag."
It's because you're not allowed to talk about Disney.
Why can't you say Disney?
Because I think it's fine as long as you're not specific. I don't know.
And why can you have the artwork of the Lion King?
Maybe I'm wrong, but...
And early on too, in that song, is it when they make fun of like musicals, like having like African people walking through the crowds, like and
a different song maybe? Definitely that was like a little motif how there's certain spaces in the Broadway world and in pop culture for Blackness to exist, and how if you're not going to exist in those kind of like quote unquote permissible spaces, or like the spaces that are allowed to exist, then there's no place for your art. And this show, obviously, it's not a Lion King or a Hamilton, you know, it's something completely different. And I found that very exciting and enriching. But
how many minutes?
Like, not only do I want to dance to the song, I just like felt like as a writer, like this was this is my connection to it. I was like, yep, that's what it's like. That's what it's like. It's hard. I relate to this, even though this is not a song about me. I was gripped. I was ready.
The next song is called Today. I would make no compromises. And Today is when he like says how he's an usher, kind of describes.
I think it all kind of like bled into one. I mean, you know what I mean? They kind of like moved very fluidly. I just like this song too. I felt it was very relatable because it was like the idea of somebody waking up every day being like, today's the day I correct all my imperfections and I actually do the things that I want to do and be the person I want to be. And then just like life gets in the way and those thoughts that are in your head come up and you actually aren't going to change. You're just going to be stuck in the same loop.
Amazing. Are there any other lyrics from that song?
I'm someone who's stuck rewriting and stuck in his own way. Someone who has to edit every imperfection today. Today I plan to change myself. And then when the thought says, okay, girl, whatever, like doesn't let him actually be a person who feels self-actualized, and that sense of like needing to change doesn't go away. And I think it also introduces like the self-loathing part popping up, saying like, I had some time to kill, so I thought I'd stop by to remind you just how truly worthless you are. Followed by the financial Essler part being like, hey, don't forget about your student loans.
All right. The next song is called We Want to Know. And that's the one with the parents where all the thoughts come together and surround the table and they all portray Usher's mom.
But the way they do it, it's like even one sentence could be sung by different voices, but they're all the voice of the mother, which again, to me, psychologically speaks to how like we are kind of made up of these different parts and like we are speaking with all these different voices and yet we're not even really aware of it. So it was really stunning way
basically
to do
this is like the adult version of Inside Out.
We want to know what's going on in New York.
We want to know what's going on in New York. So Usher has left his family. I don't know where they're from.
It didn't really say. Well, maybe it didn't. I don't remember.
And he's left them to pursue a career in the Big Apple, New York City as a writer.
Yeah, and I think this song's really important because it sets up some stuff plot-wise and character-wise. For example, with this line, we want to know what's going on in New York. We want to know if you've been chasing your dream. Because after what me and your dad went through to send your black booty to NYU, it appears you just be running around without any direction, without any direction. Is that what you really wanted to do? Then why don't you just stay here?
Oh.
And later on, it mentions that he got an MFA. And I was like, oh, this feels like it's kind of about my own life. Even though my parents would never say anything like that to me, but just the idea of like pursuing an entertainment career after, if you have had like, I don't know, an upbringing where your parents like supported you in any way, you kind of feel like, uh-oh, am I taking this risk? Is that bad of me? Should I not be doing it?
Do you feel selfish pursuing an entertainment career job?
How to answer that, because
also, well, before you do, we could also talk about Bo and Yang.
Oh my gosh. Okay, yes, but quickly, we just
Finish your thought.
Close the loop before I get into another.
There's no closing loops. This is a strange loop. It goes on and on.
The other important thing is it establishes, and this is when they bring up the MFA. Mother loves Tyler Perry. It still sounds weird to me, Tyler Perry, but okay, I don't know why. It just sounds like
touch something quick.
Back in reality, okay. And the character Usher kind of looks askance at Tyler Perry, even though it's so clear. I can't say for sure what Michael's opinion of Tyler Perry is, but it seems like Usher despises the kind of art Tyler makes and doesn't even think of it as art.
Yeah.
And yet the care and attention in the show to like recreating a Tyler Perry experience in certain scenes demonstrates like
the knowledge.
You're giving care and attention to something, even if you hate it.
Yeah.
You kind of care about it. It was really cool to see.
Because hate, as they say, is not the opposite of love. Indifferences.
Woo!
But yeah, so Bo and Yang.
Oh, wait, I didn't close the loop on that. So the establishes this very important plot point, which is the mom. She's like, if you're going to do this writing thing, fine, but where's my gospel play? Where's my Tyler Perry?
Is that in this song?
Yes. She says, you can lie to yourself if you want, but you can't lie to me, dear. You're running around here with that MFA. So now you're going to write me a gospel play by Tyler Perry, because Tyler Perry writes real life. Tyler Perry knows how to bring everything together with all the stories and all the singing and all the different people talking.
Mm-hmm.
And Tyler Perry, don't forget to bring in the spiritualities, because Tyler Perry loves his mama. And I think what's really great is that also speaks to how this show is not really like conventional in form. And Tyler Perry has a strong formula for writing.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, interesting.
So I thought that was really interesting.
And also, I think it's really interesting too, when you're not familiar with a story and you're like meeting all these new characters, you don't know who's going to be one of the major characters in this movie. And the mom character, for whatever reason, I was always like, oh, the parents leave the background. It'll just be about Usher in New York trying to find his way. But no, the mom becomes very heavily involved throughout the story.
Yeah. I think that was intentional though, because he says later on, maybe the reason I'm not able to write this is because I want to like in the play confront my parents about who I am as an artist and a person and what growing up with them has like done to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm afraid if I write that down, I won't be able to because I haven't done it in real life, or that I'm going to have to do it in real life. And so I think it's supposed to be like in the beginning, Usher's kind of like pushing his parents to the back of his mind, but then they come to the forefront of the mind by the end. So I think it was working on you the way it was constructed.
Yeah. So have you closed the loop? Have you closed the loop?
It's closed.
Bo and Yang has his podcast Los Culturistas.
See.
And Tina Fey was a guest on there. And this was a few months ago. Tina's like, you're too famous now. You can't give your honest opinion. But then Bowen recently in an interview said that he uses his podcast kind of to just give his unfiltered opinion on things.
Yeah.
And I think in the context of what Tina Fey was talking about is he gave his like honest feedback on a movie, right?
Yeah, she was like, and she was being funny. Like it went viral because it was funny.
But
She's like,
Tina
you're
Fey,
too famous for that.
She's serious, I think.
Oh, no, I think she meant it.
She meant it.
I think she meant it, yeah.
And so Bowen's like conflicted when he's in this interview. He's like, usually I get to be like authentic and completely myself. That's my brand. But then to give me pause, as someone who's more famous now, I'm kind of struggling with being completely honest and then also censoring myself. And I'm kind of like trying to decide between the two.
Yeah. And just looking at it, he said that Tina was kind of saying like authenticity is dangerous and possibly expensive. But he is someone who's an open book that kind of processes in real times and he hasn't really regretted it. But if you do self-censor, like what does that do to you, to your idea of yourself? Which I guess it really does speak to this play actually. Like, yeah, like if you're constantly thinking about and editing yourself because of the perception of the outside world and you're anticipating that reaction in how you speak and what you reveal, perhaps it's the safer choice, but is it really? Because what is that doing to your conception of self and your ability to move through the world as like an authentic person? And does that kind of twist you up into a strange loop? I kind of think it does. Like, I don't know. But then, yeah, I mean, I definitely have that fear where like, I do think I'm kind of somebody that like in real time will kind of say whatever I'm thinking, even though I don't know. And then I'll be like, should I have done that?
Something why I like doing this podcast so much is because I'm not usually like this in real life, I feel like. to just
I guess if I
say
trust
thinks
somebody, I should say.
unfiltered, which is kind of where it's a little dangerous.
I guess I'm in two minds about it because I kind of feel like it is dangerous. And also there's something to be said for privacy as well. And keeping what's special to you or like sacred to you smaller and like in an inner circle. But at the same time, I don't know, I think it's been really helpful for me because I have this big fear of judgment.
That's what I like too, is just kind of like letting go of judgment.
I think I talked about this before, but we had a writer come to our MFA program and she was a pretty young writer and she was like a queer woman. And she said that she interviewed at a big production company, big name. It was like a group that was diverse. So you'd think that they would come from like a place of understanding. But they said to her something like, okay, I have a question for you. Like, you're a queer woman. How would that make you like a good hire for our team? And she's like, well, you know, I'm really good at writing character. I'm really good at, like, she was kind of sticking to fundamentals. And they were like, no, but your identity, how does that make you an excellent addition to our team? And she was like really like kind of disturbed by it. She's like, why should I have to like tell you my most personal stories and inner secrets to get hired? I mean, that is kind of part of being a writer, but at the same time, she's making such a valid point of like, if you want to be in entertainment, you have to like kind of rip your guts out and show them to other people and be like, please see value in this when it is inherently valuable, because we all are inherently people of value. And so to have to just give that away to try and get a job, you know, it's a little alarming, and how you maybe should save some of the things just for you and protect them, because otherwise people can judge them and can use them and distort them and mess you up as a result. And yet I still want to be authentic.
How can they mess you up as a result?
Like if you're handing over your darkest secrets, right?
Yeah.
And then other people can play with them and like give their opinion on it, and you're like kind of receiving that, what does that do to your inner self and your conception of self? Like it just kind of can psychologically maybe wound you a little bit.
There was a top comment on the Instagram video of Bowen Yang's interview that I kind of want to read. My therapist said something that resonated with me. People need to earn the right to know everything about you. Over communication can be toxic, just like under communication. I often pour my heart out to everyone in a desire to relate to them or find out if they can relate to me. But in reality, that person may not have earned the right to my internal thoughts, desires, and traumas. Those things should be shared to those that have shown me enough respect to actually give care and concern. Another point, some people cannot hold the things you share with them if they're too deep or dark. There is an emotional and mental weight when we're so open about ourselves that gets put onto others' shoulders when we are so open, and they may not be able to hold that, happy things or traumatic things. I too consider myself an open book, but now I aim to find balance in that and share my details with those worthy of them.
That was so well written.
Yeah, it really is. So when I saw that, it definitely gave me pause on our podcast.
Really?
Just being so
open
about everything. Because surprise, playing pickleball a couple weeks ago, and people were like talking about they didn't have kids and they just like didn't like kids and all the annoying concepts of how annoying they found children. And in my head, I'm like, I don't know, like kids are fun to be around. And as they were just kind of venting, I realized I hadn't said anything as the three of them were all complaining. And then finally someone like asks my opinion on it. I was like, oh, I guess I probably should jump in. But I often just feel like I'm a fly on the wall in so many situations.
I understand why you didn't speak up, because if everybody's in agreement and you're like the naysayer, it's not really a fun role to be. I
really struggle on when to say things and when not to say things. And I, in most cases, choose not to say things. And I think that's hurt me a lot in the past, because I think there's this fear of like over communication, even though I'd say I seldom communicate.
I could see what you're saying.
And now I know.
I was thinking it.
Pouring myself out.
I was like, Joe, just that he has paused about the personal part of our podcast, and then he goes on to share something extremely
I don't know
personal.
what about this like microphone in front of my face. I just forget, because I feel like we talk like this.
Yes, we do. I think it's like when you're with someone you trust, you are open.
Yes.
It's just that, but I understand, because like I feel like some people are so good at like making friends at work, for example, and I find that really challenging, because I'm like, this is a workplace. You can't just like drop your guard and be normal. Like you have to be professional and buttoned up, and then I can't share anything. And I feel like I come across as very like shy and weird in most workplace settings. And
you know what it ties into really well is the Family Stone, Sarah Jessica Parker's character.
Yeah.
How she has such a hard time connecting with the family. And there's this one big dinner scene, and Sarah Jessica Parker is with her fiance's
We'll
family,
probably talk about this at Christmas time, but
her
go ahead.
possible future in-laws at dinner, and she's not connecting with them at all. In fact, they all kind of despise her. And then through a hilarious turn of events, her sister Claire Danes ends up at the house too. And Claire Danes asks like a really deeply personal question.
But she does it in a very organic, sensitive, genuinely curious way.
She's very genuinely curious. And Sarah Jessica chastises her.
And feels a little threatened.
But then she sees how much the family opens up to Claire. So then Sarah Jessica asks the question, and it completely backfires.
It's like most offensive question.
So I say that's maybe my fears, that
But you're so
the
good at asking
backfiring.
questions. Well, it speaks to how we have all so many different parts, right? Like
Yeah.
the part of us that wants to do the podcast and be open and authentic, and the part of us that's afraid that that's a bad thing to do or something that's going to open us up to judgment or something that's not very wise or something we'll regret later on, and how both of those voices can be really strong in different moments. And hopefully we can learn how to connect those two parts and get them to speak to one another and come to a happy medium.
But so this all ties back to, is it selfish to pursue
Oh, right.
a career in entertainment?
I mean,
And I guess I should say we also have the freedom to not answer all these questions.
I'm comfortable answering this question, I
Okay.
think. On the one hand, like, I was a very good student. You know, I was fortunate enough to go to a very good university where a lot of people pursued very traditional and more simple to become lucrative career paths, if that makes sense.
Simple and lucrative.
They're not simple jobs. Like, the path to it is simple, if that makes sense.
It's all laid out there for
If
you.
you do these things, you're going to make
Do
a lot of
this,
money and you're going to
yeah.
have this nice life. And that felt very stifling to me. And it wasn't something I really wanted. And I don't think I really could have, even though intellectually I think I could have done it, I don't really think I could have done it on a human level.
Yeah.
And so there's some part of me that's like, this is just who I am. And I couldn't, it's like putting a round peg into a square, whatever that phrase is. Like, I couldn't have done
Round
it.
peg in a square hole.
And so it is selfish in choosing yourself and what you're best suited to, going after that. It's kind of selfish, but at the same time, like, if you're not taking care of yourself, aren't you going to put more harm into the world than if you like are doing better by yourself so that you're okay, so you can like bring your full self into the world and like do more for others? And so there's that part of it. But then there's other part of it where I'm like, again, very self-imposed, but I feel like there's like this idea that like if you were lucky enough to do something like that, you should like pay it back or like do it for your family or something like that. So I kind of see
Hey,
that
that
side
ties
of
back
it.
into a strange loop where the
Yeah.
mom wants a gospel play written.
Yeah, and like my parents are great where they don't like want me to be anything in particular, but
Yeah.
I'm sure like, yeah, there's like that expectation set up of if you go to that kind of school, you're going to have this life or career path, and I rejected it. So I am like, oh, was that a bad thing to do? But, you know, I don't think I could have done even though in terms of like doing the work, I'm sure I could have done it, but I think I would have been really miserable. I think everyone around me would have not enjoyed me as much. So that's my answer. And I think if you're an artist, it's like a calling. You know, you just can't help it. You just have to do it. And it might be bad, and the world doesn't need, as they said in the Mad Men quote, the world doesn't need any more ballerinas. So there's that part of it, but it is what it is. What will be your answer?
I grapple with it. To a degree, I do kind of feel like, for me personally, that's selfish to be pursuing. And if I'm going to pursue an artistic career, there's this part of me that wants to be the best.
I get that,
Because it's like
yeah.
if I'm like really pouring all my time into this, I'm like really like sacrificing a lot.
It better be worth it.
They're calling me up to edit Dune 6.
You would be on that stage accepting that Oscar,
Yeah.
which you will be.
That's like realistically is just like not how it's going to go down. And also Hollywood is changing so much too. Like the landscape is all different. And so even in this industry, there's things that you can follow to get places. And I feel like I take different paths to get
I think
to
that
different places.
okay, Mitch Horowitz is the writer of Arrested Development and creator. He went to my undergrad, and we like had this experience where film miners got to come to LA for a couple of days. So we like briefly met him, and he gave this really good quote. I want to attribute it to him because it's such a good quote, that in life you should zig when other people zag. So just because you're zigging doesn't mean you're not going to get where you're going to go. And also,
I'm going to zig my way to the top.
And also, I think it's important. A lot of the advice I heard in my MFA program from people who were like kind of established in this industry was that it takes 10 years. Like whatever you start,
Hey, I'm halfway there.
but you could start the clock if you wanted to when you enrolled in your MFA.
I don't know.
Or you don't have to start the clock then, and maybe you're almost there. And it's like, it happens when it happens.
Things happen when they happen.
Yeah.
I like that idea. Because it's
Yeah.
like, again, why we enjoy doing this podcast is I think you and I, we like to control
Different types of controlling.
different types of controlling. And so, yeah, it's kind of
It
like,
gives us an illusion of control. Is that what you're saying?
well, no, kind of like this like free thought. You kind of like lose control.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's why I think this is really healthy for me, because I do think I'm so afraid. Even when I do my writing, like I will love what I've written. I'm not joking. Like I sometimes think I need to have a different relationship to my writing. Like I'll write something like, that was amazing. And then I'll like read it like 3 months later. I'm like, it was fine. I need to work on it some more. But I almost don't want people to read my work because I'm like,
Yeah, you haven't shared anything with me.
no, I shared a couple things.
A page of a short story.
No,
And you print it out. You're like, here, you can read it. And you turn the page again. Oh, did you see it? Oh.
I remember like someone in my MFA program, because it was on Zoom, unfortunately, we would do these like reading sessions. And then someone, my classmate was like, I love to like look at everyone's faces so I can see exactly how they're reacting to every single line. I was like, what? I stare at my keyboard. Are you kidding me? I don't want to see that. I'm so afraid of the judgment. And yet feedback is really important. So
feedback's so important.
It's essential.
Yeah. We're only like 3 songs in. We probably should speed up.
And we've really made this play that's not about us, about us.
Yeah,
is this fucking play about us? Can you play that clip?
Wait, is this fucking play about us?
The next song. Oh, Inner White Girl. Which Inner White Girl was one of my favorite songs on the album.
Okay, so one thing I forgot about seeing a play is that when it's a musical, you got to be good at listening to musical lyrics to really get the story. I'm actually very bad at deciphering lyrics upon a first listen. So I was really struggling at certain points in time, even though remarkably it was still very clear, even though I definitely missed things. And this song, for some reason, I just heard the phrase Inner White Girl and heard something about being wild. And so I was imagining that he was describing like, trying to think of an example, like a manic pixie dream girl, or like, you know what I mean? Like somebody who's just kind of like a little...
Because that's the first thing
we
talked about that song right after the musical ended.
And Joe was so confused. He's like, Allison.
And you were like... You're like, well, there's one line about being shy and vulnerable, but I really liked that. I wish they really elaborated on it. I was like, that's what the whole song was about. What are you talking about?
Yeah, when I listened to it later, I was like, oh.
And all the songs in this musical are catchy.
Absolutely.
And you guys, I've said it before, catchy music is everything. And I noticed a lot of people were like kind of like grooving and dancing to the songs. It's just very wonderfully well done. But it is about this idea of how, and I wouldn't say it's like limited to white women per se, but I just think people who have the ability to just like lay everything on the floor and be really, how would you describe it? Like
I think
sensitive.
Just kind of like breaking the rules. That's what the song keeps coming back to, the idea like black boys have to obey their mother, but my inner white girl doesn't have to do that. Like she can be shy and vulnerable. She can confront anyone or anything.
But to
she
say
can be
that
wild, she can be lithe and luscious. Like
to say that like shy and what was the other word?
Wild, or like just holding these different ideas.
Shy, vulnerable, and wild are like coveted attributes.
Yeah.
Like I never think that like shy is a coveted quality, but it's like, oh wow, it kind of is.
Like it's a different costume you can put on, like being that angsty emo teen girl. Yeah. It's hard to think about this, but it's like all of us want to be anything and to be seen as a complicated, unique person.
Yeah.
But we live in a culture where like not a lot of people get to do that. And we're kind of like put into narrow boxes, and how that's really awful. And it's especially awful for people whose identities are so marginalized and so stereotyped that the wider culture can't see these other parts of you.
Which is funny, tying it back to like queerness, how you can also box yourself in. You can also be like, these are the characteristics of
that I have to lean into.
That I have to lean into. Or then you like choose to like resist it. Or you realize that you're like nothing like that. So then you feel othered even more. And so it's really interesting with Usher is to say that he has this inner white girl. It's like, well, and also Michael R. Jackson wanted to have the musical have Liz Phair cover songs. Or at least was it in the, now I'm kind of forgetting because it was very meta. Does Usher sing that in the musical that he wanted to write a musical with Liz Phair songs?
I can't remember if it was during the callback, the talkback, or
it might
the
have
play.
been, or was it the introduction versus a strange loop after a Liz Phair song, which would kind of be weird to do because it would kind of prompt the audience.
I'm not sure.
But yeah, so the song's called Inner White Girl, and Michael R. Jackson in real life was listening to a lot of Liz Phair.
Well, he loves Joni Mitchell.
Joni Mitchell, yeah.
I have a quote somewhere about his musical influences growing up and how they were like these like white 70s singer-songwriters. But yeah, I thought this was like, now that I heard the whole thing more clearly, I thought this song was really good. And I kind of want to bring up like a line from the end of the play. I'm just going to do it because I'm worried that I'm going to forget. At the end, he says something like, some people stand together, but I stand apart. And in that moment, he's kind of claiming it as a good thing or like as just a fact. Whereas I feel like in the beginning of the play, the fact that he stands apart and is pulled in all these different directions and has all these different parts of himself is like a problem he needs to fix. Whereas by the end, he's starting to wonder, is it a problem? Yeah. Or do I just need to like conceive of it differently? And like stand in my apartness. And I really liked that.
That was a good message. White girls can do anything. Can't they?
Can't they? Remember we were leaving. We were trying to go downstairs to the talk back. And I, first of all, this is an example of how I'm not assertive enough because I was like, well, we can go down there. Joe was like, yeah, let's go down there. I was like, oh. And then I was like, and then I kind of decided to more inhabit myself more fully. I was like, well, I mean, I'm a white girl, so I can do whatever I want. And I was like, which I don't mean, but what's the next? Hit me with the next one.
Didn't Want Nothing is through the perspective of Usher's father, who's this very intense, but they also really captured the awkwardness really well. The dad would appear, and I forget if he showed up as the thoughts.
He was a
in this section, Well, the thought would
thoughts.
also, one singular thought would portray the father, and other times, like multiple thoughts would portray the father. But I think at this point, there was one character that was playing the father. And he has this really like deep, distinct
Yes.
voice. And he keeps saying like, what's up? Which is such a strange line.
This is actually what it was. Hi, son, it's your dad. I don't want nothing. Just thought I would call and say what's up to my number one son. And the actor was so good. Whenever he would say, I don't want nothing, it made me so sad inside because it was clear he does want to connect
Yeah.
and he does want something, but he has to pretend he doesn't.
Yes.
And
that's
that
where there
was
was so much,
devastating.
there was so much weight in that what's up.
Yeah. Like
The-
just
like
the
desperate-
fake casualness.
Yes. It was a fake casualness.
That actor really did a good job because I just like understood exactly.
He's the no actor.
Okay. We will say there was an actor. We just called him out. Okay, so this during the talk back, everyone's talking about how like
Michael R. Usher specifically saying how much.
Michael R. Jackson.
Sorry, just the strange loop. I'm mixing names up. Michael R. Jackson was talking about how like everyone in this play is black and queer.
Yes, they asked every actor, "Can you please describe what it means for you to be in the show?" or something like that. And the guy who went first, he was like, "Well, I just want to say, queer. It doesn't necessarily mean like, not everyone on the stage is gay. It just means weird. Like queer means weird."
He didn't say not everyone was gay, but he's like, I don't like limit queerness to sexuality.
Oh, yeah,
is what
yeah,
he was saying. And then so we're like, have this whole like movie experience, like, and then he kind of just was going against it. It's like, oh, like he's not.
It was like we were joking on the way out. We were like having a ball saying, like, I'm a weirdo, but I'm not gay. I'm weird, but please don't say I'm gay.
But then,
Which I'm sure is not what he meant, but
well,
we
then
were
I went on his Instagram. I'm pretty sure he's in a relationship with another man. So.
maybe
I think he genuinely
protecting the
did.
identity of somebody else.
I think
on
he was
stage.
because then later on to this play, it talks a lot about Tyler Perry, and Tyler Perry has a lot of gospel in his
And it dealt with like the main character's relationship to religion.
and God, and then someone else is like, and my God, or something like that. I was like, oh wow.
What was the question was like, it's such a tough industry. Like, how do you keep going? And so this person was like, you grind, you rest, you grind again. You try and thrive. She kept saying different like verbs, and then was like, and you pray. Oh, you pray, and we were like, oh.
Oh, you're a little more religious than we thought.
Wait, can we quickly talk about the person
Yeah,
who also
I was-
answered that question?
I was going to bring it up. It was John Andrew Morrison again. I'm telling you, he had the best answer.
I think I wrote it down.
His advice.
His
Yeah.
advice was, it's like, a long time ago, I had this teacher who was a mentor, and she had a magnet on her fridge, and it said, climb every other mountain.
And he's like,
And then he was like, climb every third.
yeah.
Like,
when you like need to rest, and don't feel like you need to climb every
mountain.
goddamn
And you can be
mountain.
selective in what you lean into. And you know what?
Climb
great.
every other mountain.
I should quickly see, because there was actually some very moving advice.
Well, we'll get to the end. Let's just keep blasting through these songs.
Oh, I just have so many things I need to say.
Exile in Gayville is an ode to Liz Phair's Exile in Guyville.
Okay. You want to tell me a little bit about Exile in Guyville?
Well, I should say Exile in Guyville is the album of Liz Phair's.
Oh, okay.
And I think like the songs that stick out to me the most are Never Said and Fucking Run.
I thought you were talking about like the musical. I was like, I don't remember those ones.
And then the last song on the album is called Strange Loop, which is what the play's based on. The song like Fucking Run, like specifically, that one just like stands out to me because it's the idea of like your inability to like connect with a partner. And in the song, this singer keeps like desperately saying that she wants a boyfriend so badly, but then she wakes up beside another man and she could like not be more disgusted and wanting to get out of the room so badly.
Oh.
Which kind of ties into a song later on in A Strange Loop.
Yes, which was a very...
Kind of like this like regret and like lack of boundaries.
I'm fascinated by that. Also, the lyrics for Exile in Gayville are not online.
Well, isn't it? It's like the qualities of like going on Grindr and trying to
Yeah.
find somebody. Is that when all the thoughts like start speaking as other
As if they're
Grindr
like matches.
profiles?
Yeah.
They all like say that he's too fat, that his penis is too small, that he's too black.
Yeah.
And it keeps getting repeated over and over again. There's one thought that is speaking like your traditional mask gym bro who's like, I'm masculine, just say hi. And then so it's the first person that Usher reached out to, and the guy doesn't respond. So it's kind of
And
like
then
the deal of dating in the
But then
age
he
of the
does
internet.
have a conversation with somebody. Do you remember? It was like the Beyonce part.
Oh, I was really confused by that.
So was I. So there's this part where he does have a conversation with one of the thoughts or the potential matches.
He says, have you been getting into formation lately?
Oh, and he's like, no, I don't like to support cultural terrorists. And then all of the different people on stage are like, you did not just call Beyonce a terrorist. And then he doubles down. He's like, oh, yes, I did.
What does
and
that mean to be a cultural terrorist?
I don't know. I'm going to Google it. Well, okay, it actually brings up something. There's this essay I had to read a long time ago called Culture is Not Your Friend. And it's the idea that, like, we love culture, right? We're always talking about our favorite pop culture things. But the messages in culture are not necessarily meant to, like, help us, or maybe aren't all that good for us. And so how we're, like, bowing down to this thing that can be really harmful and, like, it uses us, contorts our images, takes away our power, our voices. I don't know. It was just an interesting idea. So anyway, cultural terrorist. This is from the Council of Europe. So this is like a serious definition. Beyond the physical damage of destruction of monuments, temples, or symbols of a given culture and way of life, such terrorist acts target the very cultural identity of a people or a population. They also harm a cultural heritage that is common to all peoples of the world. So, I mean, that is more, in my mind, taking something that's sacred to a culture or a people and destroying or exploiting it, maybe. Obviously,
I don't think we can speak to this.
we can't speak to that, but I can't really say anything. I don't know enough about music to comment. Let's go with it. But it was a funny moment regardless. But then, yes, the next part, the stage was set up very simply. It was the subway, and this man gets on the subway who's like the package, right? He's like tall drink of water, whatever you would say. And he expresses interest in Usher. Okay, well, oh yeah, and one thing I really love about this play, the idea that he like is ambivalent about sex and doesn't have it very often. It's like kind of refreshing because I feel like we've talked about before, gay identity is so often tied up with like hypersexuality, and like that's what people think when they hear gay, and it's not just about that. And some people have all different kinds of relationships to sex. But the man expresses interest in his writing, and then all of a sudden he goes like, "Can I have your number? I can never do this, but can I have your number?" Usher does, and then the guy's like, "I mean, you could, but I'm just a figment of your imagination."
And it was
devastating.
I was shocked.
I was like, it was awful. It made me so
like
sad.
The rug had been pulled from under my feet.
There's this like line in one of the songs, I can't remember which one it is, but he's like, "I just want someone who thinks I'm a keeper." And it was like so sweet, and it made me anyway, that was really sad.
So now the next song is Second Wave.
And I will never be pushing a loud ass baby around in a carriage.
Second wave feminism was distinctly not racially inclusive. While there were non-white women who participated in feminism at the time, much of it was specifically focused on white women.
I think it's a tie into second wave feminism being a second wave gay man, where it's like so many gay men were dying of AIDS. And he's like, no, I like don't have AIDS, but I also don't want to get married. I don't want to have a child.
Yeah.
I don't know if he's like necessarily saying he didn't want these things, but just kind of like breaking not only like heterosexual norms, but homosexual norms also.
Yes, because there's this idea of like, what as a queer people should we be advocating and fighting for? Should it be acceptance via assimilation into like heterosexual culture, where like marriage is seen as the end all goal and being the building blocks of a healthy society with like children and all that, like is what we're supposed to be doing. We're just like everybody else. Or is it not assimilation, but not anarchy, but like pushing back against the norms and kind of helping society envision a new way of being?
Yeah.
And it's like a balance, right? Because we're all different.
We are.
But yeah, by being queer, you are standing apart. And how much do you lean into that versus trying to lean into the norms? But yeah, this song, I would say, you kind of explained it to me. I got a little confused because he was like, I'm a second wave feminist who's...
Did he say that?
I'm going to look at the lyrics. Because the second wave feminist in me is at war with the dick-sucking black gay man.
So what is second wave feminism?
Second wave feminism built on first wave feminism and broadened the scope of debate to include a wider range of issues: sexuality, family, domesticity, workplace, reproductive rights, de facto inequalities, and other legal inequalities. So basically kind of pushed it beyond like securing the vote. Was that first wave?
What's first wave?
It's about a period of feminist activity that occurred during the 19th and early 20th century throughout the Western world. It focused on legal issues, primarily on women's right to vote. I was right.
I think it was in Broad City where one of the people talks about, and women's suffrage was really important. I know, suffrage sounds really awful, but it was actually a positive thing for some reason. Why was it called a suffragist?
Well, you asked me why it was called a suffragist?
Yeah.
Suffrage is just another word for voting. I can look up the word origin.
I'm a suffragist?
Suffragette. Now I'm questioning everything. It means right to vote. It comes from a Latin word, which initially meant a voting tablet, a ballot, a vote, the right to vote. I think a suffragette is just like a woman who's advocating for the right to vote, but I don't think like, yeah, a woman seeking the right to vote through organized protest, but like it doesn't really exist anymore because we have the right to vote for now.
For now.
Wait, on my TikTok, all these like old clips of The Handmaid's Tale are coming out, showing like what it was like before the people took over. And there's like this one scene where like Elizabeth Moss tried to pay for something with like a credit card. And they're like, we're sorry, this is declined. She's like, what do you mean? I was paid yesterday. Like, no. It's because like they've all been transferred to like In the Name of Men. And I was like, wow, when I first saw this, I thought this was like fun dystopia, like could never happen. And now I watch this again, I'm like, I don't know. That could happen.
Allison actually, she doesn't use a bank. She just has a giant jar in her room that she puts all her money in.
There's always a way. Well, anyway, I found this song a little confusing because
you're not a dick sucking black man.
But I guess, yes, but to me, I was like, I guess I couldn't like wrap my head around like being a second wave feminist and being queer feels like there's not really a opposition in my mind.
Is second wave feminism like...
It just means that it's like they were fighting for more than just the right to vote, like all the other problems and inequalities. And it was notoriously, as all early feminist movements were, very segregated and very racist. But that I think is like a separate thing. I don't know if it's, I mean, maybe it's all part of the same thing, but in this song, I'm just trying to understand, I guess is that like, okay, I think I get it. So like second wave feminists would be like, I'm not putting up with any shit from these men. Like I'm not going to like be abused by them. I'm not going to be mistreated by them. I'm going to be equal to them. But then like he's at war with the part of himself that's in love with kind of like a bunch of shitty men. Maybe.
Okay.
I don't know. I could be really wrong.
Isn't it again that he like doesn't fit into the gay culture? Like if his family's like, you better not be like, what, do you want to be a white girl? So he's like struggling with that. And then also he like struggles with his gay identity too, because he doesn't necessarily feel like he's connected in that way. And that's why he can't connect with these gay men.
Maybe, yeah. I don't know. This was the one song that I felt, my takeaway wasn't as like clear when I heard it in the theater, but I still liked it. And I think that's kind of speaking to what people, the actors were saying, how like the song's about a very specific experience and that experience is not going to be the same for all audience members, and like how that's the strength of the play.
The next song is called Tyler Perry Writes Real Life.
You know, it's been months since we last spoke, and I have no idea if this is of any interest to you or if you have any materials to send.
So this song, we've been saying all of like this idea of like black excellence, and Tyler Perry is seen as this movie mogul who's been able to like profit and become really successful off of entertainment geared towards black stories. Is that right?
I think there's like a couple things happening where like black excellence are like striving to be the very best. There's that happening. But then also like Tyler Perry is very successful. But I think like sometimes like his movies are seen as low brow and they're seen as like leaning into stereotypes. They're not like trying to cater to like a white audience or like a broad audience maybe. I mean, yeah, a commercially quote unquote universal audience, whatever that is. And so I think the characters, like, I want to write for a different audience, or like I want my work to be art versus like, I don't know. I think there's like a tension there that I can't explain properly, but does that kind of make sense what I'm saying?
So in this song, Tyler Perry Writes Real Life is Usher's manager.
It's actually a thought. One of the thoughts is like a manager.
Oh.
Like an artist manager.
The thought says there's an opportunity to write for Tyler Perry.
Yeah.
And ultimately, Usher says that he doesn't want to.
I think he does it. I'm not sure, but I think he does it because he needs the money. There's also in this song is when all of the ghosts of
is that in the song?
Black History come out, like
my
Harriet
gosh.
Tubman and
it's so
James
funny.
Baldwin.
It's all these like kind of historic black figures.
Do you want me to just like read this?
Yeah.
So he's basically like saying like, thank you for the opportunity, but Tyler would be none too fond of me. The crap he puts on stage, film and TV makes me and my bio want to rise. Nothing that he writes is real TV, just simple-minded hack buffoonery. So he's kind of very anti this. He's kind of like going to reject it, but then all of a sudden he's like, today I plan to change the scene for the better. Hello? Agent Fairweather, are you there? But then all of a sudden people start yelling, race traitor, race traitor, race traitor. Who's there? And it's like, I'm Harriet motherfucking Tubman and I got a problem with you. I'm Carter G motherfucking Woodson. I got a problem with you too. Jimmy Baldwin, Zora Neale Hurston. Well, yeah, and then there's someone like running around the stage like really fast. He's like, who are you? He's like, 12 years a slave.
And then also in the background, so there's like I said, there's the 6 different like rectangular slots for the thoughts to be in. And you're waiting for the last thought to come out. And you see like flashes of light in the background. You see like a really like glittery dress. And you're like, oh my gosh, who's that? And then all of a sudden thought, I think is she thought 6 thought before she comes out. And you're like waiting to say who she is. She's like, we're back!
Yeah. And then they kind of like take him to task for like this snobbish opinion. Like, who are you to judge Tyler Perry, who is extremely successful? And who are you to say it's not art? And he does write real TV and all this stuff. And so that's why I do think in the end he does agree.
Well, and then Harriet Tubman also has a shotgun.
Oh yeah, she keeps like
she like pretends that she's like walking away. Then she'll turn around and point it at Usher.
That was how the scene ended. Like you think it's like over, and then he like turns around. And she's like, Yeah, so then they kind of like are like, you gotta do it. And I think that speaks to like this sense of like not wanting to betray who he is or where he comes from or like reject the things that he thinks are dumb, yet he feels like he should still do it.
Yes. And then the next song is writing a gospel play. So he does take the job. He's going to write this gospel play because his mom really wants him to.
Yes, she does. Oh.
Oh. So is this the song where all of a sudden he's like imagining, he's writing like a really exaggerated Tyler Perry play in his imagination?
I think so, yeah.
You don't sound very convinced.
Like this part was hard. It was very like fast, the singing. Like it was the hardest. I take it back. These were actually the songs that were the hardest to hear because they were very loud, very like emotive. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Mm-hmm.
And so I really had a hard time hearing. But yes, I do think that was the intent of what was going on.
Okay. And now this brings us to A Sympathetic Ear, which is the most
moving.
This is the most moving that Alice and I talked about, how we kind of like forgot that we were watching a musical.
Oh yeah, that previous scene was him trying to write the play and being like, this is ridiculous, and kind of like, I think he was going to not do it, maybe.
And then A Sympathetic Ear made him realize.
Which is kind of confusing. I don't know. Okay, well, we'll just keep going.
Can you just read the line from A Sympathetic Ear where she's like...
It's really short. I could just read the whole thing. I think I should just read it.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I like this. And she holds up the Lion King bag. And basically it's a woman who's approaching him while he's being...
I want to hear her intonation now. She's like this. I like this. I like Wicked.
We both laughed.
And I like Wicked.
But basically she's like this lady like comes up to him while he's like trying to usher everybody in or intermission of the play, and she's like bothering him like, oh, are you an usher? Do you want to work in theater? And like trying to like kind of be like this old woman who's kind of bothering him. And that's why that also works kind of well, because then she says, I like this and I like Wicked. I come up every year to see my shows. I'm from Miami Beach, in Florida, like Dorothy, Blanche, Sophia, and Rose.
Do you know what that the references to?
Is it the Golden Girls?
Yeah.
All my life I've lived for others, made space for every dream except my own. But then one day I looked into the mirror and saw that I was old and all alone. So my advice, don't play nice, don't look back, and don't think twice. Don't let doubt get in the way of what you want, just roll the dice. Stay the course, seize the day. Ride your horse into the fray. Live your life and tell your story in exactly the same way, truthfully and without fear, in spite of those who wish you disappear. Find joy inside your life while you're still here. That's your challenge from a sympathetic ear. If you're not scared to write the truth, then it's probably not worth writing. And if you're not scared of living the truth, then it's probably not worth living.
That line gave me chills. That was crazy.
You gave me chills again right now.
Yeah.
It's really powerful stuff. I mean, it's really true. And that goes back to our Bo and Yang anxiety. It's like, if you're not taking risks and putting yourself out there, what are you doing? Like, you can't prevent yourself from pain or judgment or death or any of the things that we're afraid of. Like, there's no escape. So you should just do it. You'll survive. And it's better than living on the sidelines and never trying or living at all.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
But yeah, this part was really powerful. And what I really liked about it structurally, this comes in the middle, right?
Yes.
And it has more catharsis, I would say, than the end.
Yeah.
And in that way, it's subverting the convention of theater.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll also say that the end, I don't know if you noticed this, but the intermission bell was dinging again, implying that we're leaving this character at intermission in the middle point of his life, where everything's still open.
I love that.
Wow. He could fall into a strange loop, or he could move forward.
Leaving us a media res. The story still continues.
Which could be seen as comforting or, not, but I thought it was comforting.
It's comforting.
Anyway.
It's comforting.
Anyways, we love this part.
The next
simple and we want to be comforted.
Because now the rest of the play goes down a very dark spiral.
Yes.
Everyone, it gets dark.
And heavy.
The next song is In With Daddy, which it's where Usher meets a man. But before he meets the man, a thought portraying Usher's father appears.
Oh, yeah.
And presents the idea that, oh, you like men? Do you find me attractive?
No, I think what he said was, when you came out to me at 17, my reaction was to say, well, are you attracted to me? Which is even worse. I mean,
it was really strange. And that's when
made me shudder.
The people in the audience with us, there was a very vocal crowd behind us, and they all were like, oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh. Is it saying what I think it's saying?
It was so well done, because I think the way they do it, it's so quick. You're like disturbed by it and you don't understand it. And then they return to it later and you get it later, which we can talk about later.
But so they like present that, and then immediately goes into Usher's meeting a man who kind of looks like the father figure that you just saw.
Mm-hmm.
they have sex.
I don't know if you could hear, but there was like an implication that what was happening was that the man was like using like
Race
slavery and race
terminology.
as kind of like a turn on type thing.
But then what was really interesting is after they have sex, Usher immediately is like getting his clothes on, trying to leave.
Yeah.
And then the man like wants him to stay.
He seems to be like really like, almost like sweet. Like, I want you to stay with me.
Like, stay
but
for
then
breakfast.
the last thing he says to him is like, but I know you'll be back. Boys like you always come back.
Yeah.
And that was very sinister and disturbing. But quickly, there's this comforting moment, right? With a sympathetic ear. Followed by this.
Yes.
And so she was saying like, go live your life. And the beginning of that song is him being like, today's the day I changed my life. So his attempt to be different is to choose this situation, which I just find is actually really dark if you think about it. It's like if we are not, I don't know how to explain it. Like you almost
have
can't,
to protect yourself a little bit. Is that what you're saying?
or I think it's like if we're not like fully healed or like we're still like in pain, we can think we're doing things that are helping us that are still harming us. Do you know what I'm saying?
That's really interesting. Yeah.
So that is actually kind of a sad thought. But anyway, as you were saying.
So then it goes into the really beautiful song Boundaries.
Yes.
It almost sounds like a Sam Smith song.
What a performance. Where are my boundaries?
The song Boundaries is just immediately follows Inwood Daddy, and it's Usher expressing that he feels regret for the sex he had with this man and how he basically had no boundaries and in hindsight like did not want to do it at all. And I'm pretty sure at the end of the song he sings like, I have no boundaries.
He says at the very end, why do I do this? Bound down and people please. I can't know freedom without clear boundaries. Till I draw boundaries, I have no boundaries.
So it's this like realization that he isn't protecting himself.
And the idea that like to be free is to be able to say like
No,
or to know what you want. And it's weird, like the more rules or like rigidity you have, depending on how intentional it is you have in your life, like perhaps the freer you are because you know what matters to you and you're not going to get swept away by other people's preferences and desires. And like while I can't relate to what was happening in the previous scene or like the sexual component of this, like the idea of having no boundaries and being a pushover and a people pleaser, I was like, ugh. This song is, again, another one that feels really resonant for me because I just have a hard time like saying no or be like, I want to go along to get along. So I think this is like a really, song is really powerful for me.
Yeah, you should play it a lot.
Yeah, I played it a lot.
You should play it a lot.
I was like,
Yeah, you play it a lot.
No.
You have no boundaries when it comes to the song. You keep playing Boundaries over and over again.
But it's really interesting in like reading the lyrics. He's talking about like later on, why do I do that? Down on my hands and knees. Why play submissive? What are my boundaries? Thought it would learn me if I let it burn me. All I ever wanted was to show that I was tough enough, big enough and strong enough to slow down a speeding train, outrun the bulls in Spain. I swerved aside my lane. My brakes went out and now I'm broken. Still I beat myself up. Still I knock myself down. And still I flip myself off in the mirror, which makes me feel really bad, which makes me feel really good, which makes me feel like the stupidest asshole. So this like idea that like it's almost like in putting himself in that situation, he thinks he's gonna feel power, right? But instead it doesn't work. But then like the pain feels good. I don't know. It's like psychologically really an interesting song.
Yeah. And then the next song is Periodically. And is this the song by the mom?
This is so awful.
And in the beginning, it's like, I like to check in with you periodically.
Well, it's because it's his birthday. He's turning 26 on the 26th.
Oh, yeah. She's like, I want to be the first to call you, but if not, besides the Lord, I love you the most. But then it leads into
a tirade.
How she believes that homosexuality is wrong. I thought you'd grow out of being gay. I remember this because I like heard it in the car.
Yeah.
Like driving to work. I listened to it the next day. I was like, holy shit.
It was awful.
But there's this really beautifully sung part between them, even though they're singing like Hell is Real or something like that. But it's like the way they sing is like so beautiful. I want to find it. It's like so dark, but so catchy. Hell is real.
As the Hollywood homosexuals, we will say we do not condone the message we just made you listen to.
Hell is real.
The part of this that really gets me, the periodically, which is why I think it's the title of the song.
Yeah.
It's like she's calling on his birthday. That's established. But when she says the word periodically, you're like, oh, fuck, this lady, this mom, periodically, she calls up her son to be like, by the way,
homosexuality is wrong.
It's a sin. You need to stop. You need to stop, or your soul is in danger. Like,
yeah.
So he's constantly getting that message from like a person he loves. But the show explains like why she thinks that way. It's because she loves him and that's what she believes. So it's just like a really complicated, upsetting thing.
So Didn't Want Nothing reprise. And is this where it explains more
about the dad?
About the dad.
So in this song, it suddenly becomes clear that like, well, we should just read the quote.
Yes.
Okay.
He's real.
This time, the dad's calling because some people at church heard his music online and are like being rude about it.
Wait, there's a specific line that he says, painted.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
What does that mean?
Yes. Okay. So the crazy scene that we couldn't understand with like all of the high energy, it was very difficult to like hear the words.
Yeah.
The thing I did get out of it was like it was supposed to be like an imagined return visit home that becomes like derailed by like something that happened where somebody wrote the C word on someone's car.
Oh, I saw that. Yeah.
And so then this is actually really short. Hey, son, it's your dad. I didn't want nothing. Just thought I would call and say what's up to my second-born son. Some people at church saw some of your music. It's out there, online, out front. Just like somebody spray-painted cunt.
Whoa.
It's the lyrics, so it's okay to say. I don't condone that
It's
word.
alarming. You like locked eyes on me when you said it too.
I committed. I don't condone that word. I don't condone it. We're not British. But anyway, going back to the thing. What I find really fascinating about this is like that's another fear about being public with writing or like putting anything out there. It's like a reflection on the people that love you, especially if you do write from a personal place. In this play, this writer's writing about his family often and then putting it out there. They're not portrayed in the best light. And it's like if you are writing from your personal experience or you're even being self-referential and you put something out there, people might assume that's about like your life and the people you know. And it's almost like it's like, are you being disrespectful? Or are you being like you're allowed to share your personal story, but like who gave you permission to like paint other people with that stroke? And it's almost like bringing shame upon, if you're like in a shame-based culture, upon the people around you in a way. Do you know what I'm saying?
It is.
It's not. I don't know. Is it? I don't know.
This is heavy.
I know. But well, yeah, one thing that we were supposed to talk about was the whole thing gets repeated where the dad's like, are you attracted to me? And then Usher goes on to explain, like, not only is that incredibly creepy when you say that, but what's really disturbing to me is that in my mind, I think about how if you somehow weren't related to me in some universe, would a guy like you, who's like, this is a very masculine man, be attracted to someone like me? And I think that the answer is no. And how much that like fucks with my head. And it was like devastating.
Just like a thought that like I didn't even know could cross a human's mind.
Yeah. And it also seemed like the dad didn't understand it and like didn't know how to like talk about it. Is that what? I can't remember.
I guess that's an interesting way to look at it. But I was like thinking more it was like he sees homosexuality as like deviant behavior. And so almost like tying into like boundaries. It's like, you find men attractive, do you find me attractive also?
Yeah.
But then kind of what you're saying is like, he's like trying to like connect with his son at some level. So he's like, are you like, men, am I an attractive person too? I don't know.
Well, and then it also reminds me in the earlier scene, the first version of this song, he's calling him up to be like, Mom found Scott Rudin's, the producer
he's also
who
gay.
was canceled. Yes,
Yeah.
he's also gay. And he's like, you should call him because how's your writing going to get like paid for? And by the way, you both are a slur. So you have that in common. So you should use it to your advantage.
Because you have debts.
Even though I think homosexual behavior is
wrong.
But do it anyway.
Because you're in student debt.
Yeah. It's awful. Okay. All right.
Moving on.
I don't think I have more to say about that. I think it speaks for itself.
The show gets like darker but livelier in a way.
Okay. When the stage picture changed,
It was
I don't know if you heard what I said. I was like, what? Whoa.
so now it goes into the song Precious Little Dream / AIDS is God's Punishment. And so this stage that has been really like simple so far, it kind of only like shows the idea of Usher's bedroom. It shows like the idea of the outside of the concession area where he's working his job. It shows the idea of his parents' living room. But then all of a sudden the stage completely transforms into like a full living room set.
The back of the theater, the wall disappeared.
Slides away, and there's this giant first floor, well lit living room / kitchen space with like every single prop imaginable.
And then it like zooms forwards. It's closer.
It's moving towards the stage.
I was riveted. I was
Then
like,
the second,
whoa.
what we didn't talk about is that in the family, there was a man, Darnell, who was a cousin that passed away of AIDS.
And the whole time the mom keeps like mentioning,
Bringing it up.
Darnell and
Yeah.
the AIDS, he died. And then Usher keeps saying, please stop talking about him that way. And we never really get the full picture until this song.
So you're like so mesmerized by this living room set. And then the second floor is Darnell's casket. And the thoughts are now dressed up as like choir people.
Usher's coming in to the house over and over again, dressed up as different women, kind of like a Tyler Perry thing, right?
Yeah.
Mom being like, why do you hate us? And he's like, I don't hate you. Then why would you write about us like this? And then I love this line. He says, because I love you. And that goes back to the idea of like attention, right? The things that you are depicting with such care and attention is because you love it or you feel so connected to it, even if there's like all this baggage there. But then the mom, she has a chance to kind of speak her mind, and she goes through this huge long list of things that like, you don't love me, because if you did, you wouldn't have made your dad run out of here all upset, because he did that. And I think after the dad says that thing, when Usher kind of explains like what he did to him in asking that question, the dad gets upset and like leaves. You wouldn't have made your daddy run out of here with tears in his eyes. If you loved me, you would have found a church home in New York. If you loved me, you would have brought me home a daughter-in-law and a grandbaby by now. If you loved me, you'd be able to fly me around the world like Tyler Perry. But no, oh no, you are frightened about life. Never mind the student loan bank calling my house. Just lollygagging there in New York doing nothing. Probably up just dressing and pretending like he was a white woman. And then she says something else.
So then does it like then blast into like the AIDS part of the song?
So then it's like her saying my precious little dream. The idea of like all the dreams she had for her son, he's like not done, right? And like she sees that as a rejection. Why couldn't you be the daughter I always wanted? I'll tell you why. It's because you're selfish.
That's where I pulled it from.
Oh my gosh. That's when he starts to do the rotating different women coming into the house.
So he dresses up as different women?
I thought so. Or wasn't it different characters? Because he kept coming in and out the door. I remember that.
I couldn't tell if it was him or not.
I had a hard time too, but I'm pretty sure it's supposed to be. Well, then he's like, time just has this way of tearing down the dreams we think we live in, spinning wheels in motor town, so effed up and so run down and overblown and false display, just like in a gospel play. And then he comes in as a preacher. That's when he reveals what happened to Darnell, where he's like, Darnell heard so much stigma about AIDS that when he got AIDS, he was so ashamed that he didn't take medication and thus passed away.
He thought he
deserved to die. And I think I read in an interview that this was based on something real or someone that the writer really knew. I don't know if it was a cousin, and that could be wrong. Then Usher says, I don't have AIDS because I haven't been going out. You know, I've been like very scared of hearing I told you so, I told you so, I told you so, or something like that.
Yeah.
And so, sure, I don't have AIDS, but I'm terrified of like being a person in the world who like connects to others.
So basically there's like these like giant like light bulbs on the second floor where Darnell's coffin is that just says like AIDS in bright letters. And that's where like three of the thoughts are dressed up in like silvery, glittery choir outfits. And I forget what the lyrics are, but it's very like blinding and like the lights are just glowing. It's a very bright stage. And then Usher's even like, come on, everyone clap. And the audience like starts like
and
clapping.
It was like over and over so loud.
It kept going over and over and over again. It was like so exhausting. And I wasn't connecting that he's like making fun of like a Tyler Perry play. I just like did not get that. So I was just so like overwhelmed. I was like, what the hell's going on? And then the moment happens where I got teary eyed.
Oh.
And is this when you also?
I don't think so. I think I felt very overwhelmed as well.
Mom comes out and says like, I finally understand.
Yes.
I finally understand what you're going through.
She said, I now understand. I had no idea you were going through all this. And I didn't know how much you were struggling with your homosexuality. And we can still save you. We love you. You are so loved. You know, as long as you have the thought that this could be a different way, we can make it okay.
The writing was just so brilliant by Michael R. Jackson. Just the same feeling that I felt when you think that he finds love on the train.
Yeah.
It's
like a gut punch.
It's like gut punch. And I just like got like so teary-eyed and devastated.
And in like talking about this song again, I remember like it was so loud and like so like, AIDS is God's punishment. Oh. But I'm thinking about it now where like the level of noise and the amount of repetition, that is the way that AIDS was portrayed in the culture and the media for so long, right? That like it almost mirrors the messages that people received back then. Do you know what I mean? It was like really brilliant. It makes you feel it. You're like, oh my God, this is overwhelming. Please stop.
Yeah. And like at first, like people not were like clapping, but because they like intentionally had to go on for so long, like everyone just kind of like stop clapping, like, oh, like it's still going.
Like what a brilliant, that's so brilliantly done. Wait, and the lights were really, they hurt my eyes.
They were really bright.
One other thing I'll say about this song or this scene that I am so glad I remembered to bring up, at the very end, and they've had a Color Purple reference earlier too, but at the very end, like his little cousin comes running into the room, not Darnell, and is like, I need to show you something, Aunt so-and-so. And so she's like, oh, okay, honey, like, bye, Usher. Like, and he's like devastated. She has no idea because she thinks they've come to a new understanding. Mm-hmm. And then they go to like the door of this house. The little girl goes like, Aunt so-and-so, like, God says that like if you see the color purple and you don't notice it, like, I forget what the famous line is. I think it pisses God off if you walk by the color purple in a field somewhere and don't notice it. So that is the quote. And the reason that's really ironic is because The Color Purple is actually a lesbian novel or a queer woman novel that features very significantly a queer relationship that's been pretty much edited out of most of the adaptations. In the most recent adaptation that came out this past year, it's like expanded upon a bit, but not to the same extent that it's explored in the book, where it's like a relationship and then there's like a breakup that like really motivates the character to do something else. And so this is this irony where like the part of like queerness is like a part of this like culturally extremely significant piece of, I would say, American art and Black art in general. And then the fact that it's also gay is like stripped away.
Yeah, that's so interesting. Wait, so the quote is,
I think it pisses God off if you walk by the color purple in a field somewhere and don't notice it.
that's a really beautiful
And I think there's something
idea.
more to it than that. Let me see.
But so they were singing earlier that Tyler Perry always puts like, to like make a Tyler Perry script, all you have to do is like have the gospel and throw in a few color purple quotes.
So I'm glad I got to get in my soapbox about the color purple.
I've never seen the color purple
I liked the new adaptation.
in
It was
any
good. It
variation.
was really fun.
The next song is Memories. God, that scared me.
What's it called?
Memory song.
5 and 4 high school gym, sneak in the cupcake. These are my memories.
Oh, this is when he's like in the locker room
It's everybody.
and they like lift their hands up to their sides.
Yes.
Almost like hanging on the cross or something. I
Yes.
don't know what they were doing.
It's so weird because I was thinking of this. Okay, I'm so glad you said that. So in this song, he's talking about memories, and it's like, and I think the repeated line is, "These are my memories. These are my memories of one lone Black gay boy I knew who chose to turn his back on his Lord." And then they have all the other, like maybe it's all his memories, or maybe it's memories of all the gay Black boys who like decided to like step away from the culture they were raised in. And so yes, there's this moment where they all raise their hands up on stage. And when I was thinking of it, it really struck me because it reminded me of Fun Home, which is a queer coming of age story about a lesbian whose father, she's a lesbian cartoonist and the woman who coined the phrase the Bechdel test. Her father was a closeted gay man who killed himself. And so it's a story about their relationship. In the very beginning, the dad like makes her quote unquote fly by like, when she's a kid, like putting his feet and like lifting her up in the air while he's lying down. And her arms are like spread out as well. And it ends with her like saying something like, "My dad taught me how to like, let me like fly above Pennsylvania," which is where they're from or whatever. And the idea of like her dad's life, like he was so afraid and such a product of his time that he was constrained, whereas she is expansive. And so like, yes, I was struck by the crucifixion kind of imagery, but I was also thinking about Fun Home and like flying and how it's like both. And I was like, oh my gosh, like it really...
I'm so overwhelmed with all these stories. Your like mini story of Fun Home is devastating me even
Fun
more.
Home is really good. But I actually, now that you mentioned Chicago, what was the other play? Rent. Like, I wonder if there are
Rent.
like all these little Broadway references.
And the song Memory is
my
from
God!
Cats. Memory.
All alone in the moonlight. But yeah, this was a great song. It ends with him saying, "And all those Black gay boys I knew who chose to go on back to the Lord."
What did that line mean?
Well, that would be people that tried to break free or come out or do whatever, and then in the end kind of wound back up in the way that they were raised. And then he ends it by saying, "I'm one of the Black gay boys I knew who chose to turn his back on the Lord instead."
Okay.
So it's honoring all these different experiences. It's very beautiful.
I just remember that we forgot a really important element of the AIDS song.
Oh.
Is thought 4 or 6 interrupts and it's like, you're singing this song about your mother and father, but like, isn't this your story? Shouldn't you be singing about yourself?
Yes. That was really powerful.
And so that's powerful. So then Memory kind of like leads into him like reflecting about his experiences. He's like in a locker room, so I assume like high school or something like that. And
Yeah, and his choices and the way that those choices can play out for different people.
yeah. The last song is A Strange Loop. And that whole song, it's kind of how like the beginning is his anxiety being like, how do I like start this song? Like, do I start an intermission? Like, do I talk about my job? Like, what do I sing about? And then A Strange Loop is like, how do I end this show? Does it have an ending? Like, do I keep going? Like, what do I do? What was the imagery of him like having his back to the audience?
So in the beginning, he said he was like talking about how we should end it or at least intermission. And that's the thing. I actually think the play ends at intermission. Like, I don't think he's ever written the second act, which is
Yeah.
awesome, which is so, gives me chills.
Oh, I just got chills again.
But
yeah.
he talked about how, like, I think his back's to the stage at the beginning. Like, is really how you're going to end it with your back to the stage? Like, the thoughts are being kind of like critical. I can't remember the last image, but I thought it was going to end with him turning his back and then changing his mind, turning to face the front because this is like revealing everything about him. But I don't think that's exactly what happened. What does happen, he says, "Should I give up on hoping my point of view will shift and let this agony just be my greatest gift? But that is the secret that makes like zero sense. I'll never change forever if I stay on the fence. With doubts I let define me and lust I can't express and pain I keep avoiding and rage that I repress. I should stop overthinking and do the thing that's tough. Unleash my hungry lion because Dorothy's had enough of toxic Tyler Perry and white gay male tyranny and my secret inner white girl, though she is dear to me. But would that be sufficient? Or would that be a sham? Because even with those actions, I'm stuck with who I am. Someone whose self-perception is based upon a lie. Someone whose only problem is with the pronoun I. Maybe I don't need changing. Maybe I should regroup because change is just an illusion. Just an illusion, just an illusion, and I is just an illusion. If thoughts are just an illusion, then what a strange loop. Powerful stuff.
Yeah. On Wikipedia, it says at the end, with his back to the audience, Usher wonders what will happen when the show ends. He turns around concluding that he does not need to change because change is an illusion and he, like everyone else, is in a strange loop.
Beautiful.
Scary.
So he does turn around. I really liked it because I just think so often, so many of us, especially if you're at all outside the norm in any way, there are messages that something is wrong with you, right? Or like you need to change. And we're also in a culture that's so like, you can't just succeed. You have to be like, you have to be the best. Like you said it yourself. There's all these expectations. And it's like, you can feel so much shame if you don't do it perfectly, if you don't correct all your flaws or hide everything that's not quite right with you.
Yeah.
As told to you by the culture, when in reality, if you just kind of accept who you are and also recognize that who you are is just an illusion, maybe you can, I don't know what I'm trying to say, but it's powerful.
I think that there's all these things that you do, all these choices that you make throughout your life and all these thoughts that you have. And to a certain degree, like you feel like you're evolving and changing or being like, oh, like 15 years ago, I used to be like this, but like now I'm like this. But like we have this like cycle as a human that we go through. And as we like learn more about ourselves, we become more of ourselves, yet in a way we're like different than how we were before, but in a way we're the same way. So that's like what the strange loop is. Kind of like how we're talking about how we can't be boxed into one thing. There's like no finite way to say like, yes, I've changed a lot, but this is how you're supposed to be. Like, I don't know. But aren't we in a strange loop? How we used to make movies together.
Yeah.
And then we moved away. And then he said that for 15 years. And all of a sudden we're living in the same apartment, making strange podcasts together.
100%. But I like that. I think
Hey, strange doesn't mean bad.
strange means queer. Queer is strange. Strange is good.
And queer can be no homo.
It's hard to it is a hard concept to think about because we are so wedded to the pronoun I, you know, like we experience life in a certain way, but
that was another thing on the train with the devastating guy that flirts with him on the train that turns out to not be real, is he asks like what his play is about. And that's where he describes the definition of a strange loop. Have you read the definition yet?
Let's just look at it now. I think I looked at it yesterday, but
real.
that was really beautiful. Okay. This is from Wikipedia, and this is the general description. A strange loop is a cyclical structure that goes through several levels in a hierarchical system. It arises when, by moving only upwards or downwards through the system, one finds oneself back where one started. Strange loops may involve self-reference and paradox. The concept of a strange loop was proposed and extensively discussed by Douglas Hofstadter in Gödel, Escher, Bach, and is further elaborated in Hofstadter's book, I Am a Strange Loop, published in 2007, in Cognitive Science, so psychologically speaking. According to Hofstadter, strange loops take form in human consciousness as the complexity, of active symbols in the brain inevitably leads to the same kind of self-reference, which Gödel proved was inherent in any sufficiently complex logical or arithmetical system that allows for arithmetic by
I think you'd be better off reading the lyrics from his song where he describes it.
Hey, let me type in for the layman. I can't really find a simple definition, but I think I found one yesterday where it's like the idea that we have all these thoughts, but the thoughts exist in connection with external symbols from our world, or like, you know what I'm saying? Like they're defined in relationship to other things. Oh no, I can't. I've lost the thread.
See, that's a strange loop. I think it's kind of beautiful in a way that we can't describe it.
I think it's like something you understand and you cannot explain. But you know, someone out there who's smarter than us can please write me a nice little email about what a strange loop means. We honestly could continue talking about this. I took so many notes. Like I have all these quotes.
We did a lot.
But we probably don't have time. I mean,
I'm emotionally exhausted.
We were ambitious today. We're like going on vacation later. So we're trying to it's fun. People like to know the real
but
stuff.
It's too strange because it doesn't make any sense that they're gonna like listen to this and be like, only upon reflection I think is it interesting. In a month from now, to then reflect how crazy our schedule was.
Oh, I see.
Do it then.
All right. Sorry. I can't tell you now.
But were there any, you like were writing like a mad woman. Are you sure you don't want to write?
Okay, let me look. I truly, that's how I used to take notes in college. I would just dictate the entire lecture and then.
After the musical, they did a talk back. So we went all the way down to the first floor and listened to them. They all really had brilliant and beautiful things to say. One of the guys said that the play reminded them of like In Living Color, which was a TV show back in the
Yes. Okay. And oh my gosh, Michael R. Jackson
80s.
is such a great storyteller that They talked about In Living Color, which I think, let me see if I can find what the exact reference to it was. I'm pretty sure I wrote it down.
It was one of the guys brought it up.
But do you remember why?
Because he was saying like the show reminded of In Living Color and how you could play different characters.
Yes, a troupe of actors come in and bring it all and have fun and be as outrageous as possible and don't try for the intimacy. Life being outrageous, ranging from the outrageous to the most intimate. That's what I want to show. Being outrageous, it's vulnerability and everything in between. So that is kind of the writer was describing that too as like part of what he likes about the theater and about this play. And then at the end, they asked him if he had any final words. And the writer was going to close out the night, right? And like, this is a weighty play. Everyone gave beautiful answers, very thought-provoking answers. It was like, how is somebody going to like sum us all up? It was like a lot of pressure. And he sang, I'm pretty sure, the theme song to Living Color.
Oh, yeah.
And it was pitch perfect. I was like, whoa, I want to applaud. That was, what a showstopper. Wait, how to find the perfect button for this. I could not believe it. I was floored. I was ready to applaud all over again. That was some real writing in real time. It was freaking amazing.
Well, as good as he closed out the talkback, how about we use that to close out this episode? Some fly by day.
You know it?
Some fly by night.
Keep
No,
going.
it's from Moonlight, the Bruce Willis TV show.
Which there was a reference to Moonlight, which I just want to tell everybody, Joe hasn't seen Moonlight.
Don't shame me. That's a Bo and Yang thing that you should keep private.
Well, okay.
We'll
ready?
do it on a future episode.
I think it was just, you can do what you want to do in Living Color. In Living Color, you know what I'm saying? You can do what you want to do in Living Color, Living Color. It was fantastic.
It was.
Bravo. Everyone should go see A Strange Loop.
Go see it. This is Queer Cinema Catchup. I'm Joe.
And I'm Allison.
This is a movie podcast where we talk about, this is a podcast where we talk about movies, TV, and other miscellaneous topics.
Including musicals and stage plays.
Through a queer lens. Thank you so much for listening. We are on so many things. TikTok, Instagram, Snapchat.
Oh, yeah.
Email us at queercinemacatchup@gmail.com.
Check out our YouTube page. Check out our new letterbox.
Yes.
Don't forget
To
do that. Thank you for sticking with this heavy episode of thought-provoking, moving material. We hope you enjoyed and that you liked our authenticity, even if we're a little worried that authenticity is expensive and dangerous per Bo and Yang. Okay, that's it. See you later.
And don't forget, hell is real.
That's what we're going to say to end this episode. Bye!